This is Friday, June 7, 2024. We are at the Current in Beverly, Massachusetts, and this tape is part of the Morse Institute Library's continuing Veterans Oral History Project. My name is Maureen Sullivan, and we are privileged to have with us today Roger Wonson. Welcome, Roger.
Welcome to be here.
Okay. May I ask when you were born?
I was born in April the 20th, and the year is 1924.
And where were you born?
I was born in Ipswich, Mass, at the Cable Memorial Hospital.
And you currently live here at the Current,
That's right.
and your marital status?
Yeah, widower.
Do you have children?
Yes. I had 3 girls.
How many grandchildren?
8 grandchildren.
Okay. Great-grandfather? I know you have lots.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so I knew you grew up in Essex.
Right.
After you were born in Ipswich.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about growing up in Essex.
Well, it was a small town. We knew everybody, and very, very local. And in the town hall was our town gathering place for any kind of information, plays, music, and so forth.
What did your father do for a living?
My father was an electrician. He had a small company and 3 or 4 workers.
And you grew up during the Great Depression. Do you have any recollections about that?
Not really. I mean, we didn't consider ourselves poor. We didn't consider ourselves rich. We just were part of the community, and like most everybody, so it was a cordial community.
Okay. Did you go to school in Essex?
Yes, I did.
And especially when you're going into high school,
Right.
were you made aware of some of the events taking place in Europe and Asia at that time?
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, in a small town, we just had one school. It was 1 through 12. And we were downstairs for the elementary and upstairs for the high school. And we knew everybody, and it was a convenient place. I never dreaded going. I enjoyed my time there.
Okay. So you were, I believe, a senior in high school when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor
That's right.
in 1941. Do you
Yeah.
have any recollections about that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was, I'll never forget the moments of where I was, what we were doing. I mean, it was even at my teenage, I knew it was, I could sense the enormity of it in my father's attitude. I mean, to me, of course, I wasn't looking at the momentality of it. And of course he was. So I was looking at, my father, and I think I was more in remembering his attitude. I mean, I knew it was a terrible thing, but I think I got the enormity of it through him.
Okay. So what were you doing on that day? Were you at the movies, playing?
No, we were in a car.
Okay.
We had been visiting my brother, who was older. He was in a house in Saugus, and we were driving down Route 1, and we heard the president speak, and so there it was, yeah.
So did you graduate from high school?
Yes.
And were you, did you enlist or were you drafted?
Well, yeah, very interesting. I was at Northeastern University, and of course I knew the person that was involved with the draft in Essex, and I got the information that I was pretty much getting near the top of the list, and talking to my friends, they said, you know, it might be worth considering to enlist in what you want to do rather than be drafted and put somewhere where the government needs you. And so I enlisted, and it was very, very, very good. I, of course, we went to, you know, the introduction, and then they sent me training to school in communications, and the school actually was in Chicago, and I went through there, and then they sent me to Truex Field to teach, and I did that. And now, do you want me to continue on, or?
Well, we can pause for a moment because you just went through the basic communication school and
Yes.
then teaching. Let's kind of go back and get a little more detail out of that.
Okay.
So you were, okay, when you enlisted, swore the oath, where were you sent for basic?
I was sent to basics in Florida. I went to Devens to be, you know, assigned and given my uniform and so forth. I was there just a few days.
Okay, so we got you back at Devens. You're about to be sent to basic in Florida. Where in Florida?
In Miami,
Not bad.
in a hotel they'd just taken over. And this, by the way, was the Air Force, the
Okay.
Army Air Force.
I was just about to ask.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so what were you doing in Miami in a hotel they just took over?
Yeah.
New cadet for the Army Air Force. Go.
Right. Well, it's of course, you know, this was the beginning, and we were needed right away. I would say I was there probably 2 weeks, and that was my basic training. 2 weeks. And they sent me to Chicago to school.
Okay, and what kind of school was it?
Well, this was a school generally aimed at basic maintenance, a certain level, and the equipment was the communications, and we studied different types of equipment and to kind of get oriented as to what we were going to have to teach. And there would be AC/DC theory kind of thing.
So for those whose idea of communications is a little cell phone, how big were the radio sets you were learning how to use and maintain?
Well, let's see. Most of it was portable, and we didn't have basic transmitters that one would have in a field. I would say it was probably aimed at the type of equipment that were in the airplanes, the transmitters, the receivers, and the various communications within the airplane.
All right, so you're working on transmitters and receivers,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. How long?
I think, well, yeah. I'm trying to think. Of course, they were trying to build airplanes and communications. And that was the thrust. And I would assume that we were teaching students who would probably be the radio operators in the airplanes. That was, of course, where they needed them.
Okay. So how long did your training take?
Let's see, I would probably say, gee whiz, 8 months.
So at the end of the training,
Yeah.
by the way, what was your rank by the end of training?
Private.
You're still a private, okay.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened next.
Okay. Well, they, of course, needed teachers very bad. And they didn't, I guess they thought I could manage it, that I was enthusiastic and so forth. So they sent me to Truex Field in Madison, Wisconsin. And there we were assigned the positions, and of course at that time it was round the clock. 3 sessions, and it was under pretty much the auspices of the University of Wisconsin, which is there, and we had the professors of that particular section of training, and we worked pretty close with them, and I guess the professor I had that was monitoring me, they felt that I should be in a higher position, so I went before the board and I was assigned to New Haven, Connecticut, to Yale. So there I was sent to Yale. And let's see, the course there, well, it was what they call the 90-day wonders. I was there a good part of a year, I guess, because we were not just training to be an officer, which of course we had to do that too, but as to more scientific, deeper training that we would be assigned to an airport, for example, and we would be working with training of radio officers, radio men enlisted in bombers and military equipment airplanes.
So you said once you went to Yale
Yeah,
and continued teaching the 90-day
I got my
wonders.
commission as a second lieutenant. Yay.
That brings us at some time in late 43?
In 43, yes.
Okay.
43, 44.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Roger, you're newly commissioned.
Yeah.
You're still at Yale. Tell us what happened next.
Okay, I was assigned to the AACS, Army Air Force Communications System. And from there I was assigned to an airfield where I was in charge of not only the equipment, but the tower operators, anybody that used our equipment in communication in field operations. Excuse me.
You okay?
Yep.
All right. So we're now getting into 43, 44. You got the war going on 2 fronts.
Yep.
And you're leading up to, of course, in June 44, the
Yeah.
Normandy invasion.
Right.
So while you're still stationed, and what was that field again?
The Army Airways Communications System.
In, is it still New Haven?
Now, the headquarters was in South Carolina. I think it was our colonel that was in charge of that. Yeah.
So you're down in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And speaking of communications, how did you keep up with news of the war?
Well, of course, we were, supplying pilots and training. And the field that I was at was a pursuit group of, let's see, what, the airplanes, I've forgotten now the numbers, 48, P-48, well, it's a pursuit plane. Now there, of course, they had no radio man. So I was more or less assigned to the field operations, the towers, and any communications that we had to deal with. And of course, they were training people, around the clock, more or less. Everything was high priority.
And how was security, given that you were, of course, among other officers, you're still in a major duty?
Yeah, and of course, I was the equipment person too, and how things were going on, and of course, I had several people reporting to me that were in the communications loop, and it was, something that was our goal to train people and give the pilots all the absolute back up on the equipment and the connections and the tower operations and the operations of a training field for these pilots that are in these planes to go to war.
Mm-hmm. So how long were you stationed in South Carolina?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of the interval there. I think I was transferred, let's see now, to another field where they needed my assistance, and that was in the south, but I just don't remember the exact field. But anyway, it was a continuation, and we did our best to supply the needs, and when problems came up, I remember one particular problem. One of my control or tower operators said, excuse me a minute, said that he was having assignments like for a certain time for KP duty. And of course, anybody that's connected with flight, that's a no-no. So of course I had to attend to it. And I had to go to the major and say, oh, he was having troubles and he needed help. And I said, you cannot use our help. And of course I had to stop back to my colonel, charge of the system, and of course he came aboard and straightened out. But that was the kind of the problem, excuse me again, that I remember having to tell a major what was what. But it was all, the training, and that was the main thing, to give the knowledge and help they're going to get in line duty.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were mentioning pursuit planes, and two come to mind, of course, the Thunderbolt and the Mustang.
Yes.
Yes. So did that Did you see those while you were down south?
Yeah, I mean, and of course I had to have backup on my part of anything that needed further investigation and work. But then, of course, oh, that's right. They, I remember now, they sent me to Wichita Falls, Texas, at a training field there. And what we were doing now is we were training people to go to Japan. And in other words, we would be first people in there to set up communications on the airfield. And of course, we had to train for that. And now, I mean, of course, we couldn't go right in when the early combat would be bad enough. I mean, we were getting ready to, you know, train and realize that what conditions we might get. And then, of course, they dropped the bomb. So the minute they dropped the bomb, we stopped training. And I think was in, excuse me, I'm sorry, it's
That's
bothered.
okay.
I had pneumonia a while back, and there's a problem there.
Okay.
But anyway, so the minute that happened, then, of course, I wanted to get back to my studies and my career outside. And they wanted me to stay, and they said there would be a first lieutenancy that could be arranged. But I wanted to go back and get the GI Bill of Health. GI Education Bill. Oh boy.
So you actually left service in 1946, is that
Yeah.
correct?
Right,
Okay.
that's it.
And you,
Oh, thank you.
okay, why don't you grab a sip and we'll carry on.
Oh, that's yeah, so that was when I left the military
Okay.
and the GI Bill.
All right, and did you go back to Northeastern or did you go back to?
No,
Fresno?
I wanted to go, I didn't, I would want to get my degree, but I'm anxious now to, I was 25, and I wanted to, you know, get into industry, and so I went to a tech school in D.C. There was a, what was it? Capital Radio Engineering Institute. And met my wife there, and then we were married in '48, and I got her, through my cousin, work in Raytheon, Waltham, Massachusetts.
Okay, so now you're in Washington DC, you're
Yep.
attending radio engineering?
Yep,
Okay. Capital.
Capital Radio Engineering Institute, and then I graduated from that, and I've got a job at Raytheon in Massachusetts, and we got married and built a house in Beverly, right here, and I worked for Raytheon for 40 years. As a senior engineer, I went in as associate engineer and senior engineer. And I have several patents, and I enjoyed my work very much. And I retired in 1986. And my basic hobby Well, I enjoyed photography and woodworking, but music. And between the drums and the saxophone, and I took 10 years of voice study, and I guess all my music was volunteering. I was paid in a small group. We got $50 an hour, but my voice training and my solo work in churches, more or less, was what I did during my retirement.
Well, I understand you still play a mean set of drums. So, looking back, how important was it for you to serve in the military?
Well, you know, I enjoyed it, and I learned, and I did all the teacher training was fascinating and innovating, and I just, you know, it was felt I was contributing, and in fact, that's what I did primarily in my field. At one time in Raytheon, I was assigned an airplane, and the idea was that I would go around to Raytheon was the first commercial producer of the transistor, and we had to get the knowledge out. And what the company liked, and it seemed to go over, that instead of just going and showing charts and numbers, we would take part of our laboratory. And we took that, and I went to Chicago and Minneapolis. I went all over the different places, 3 or 4, where we had backstage cameras. And when I was talking about a problem that we have to face with the transistor, we went back and showed how we did it, what was the equipment. And then one of the big things was of course, the transistor would be ideal for computers, because the problem with the vacuum tubes is the tremendous heat from the heating of the cathodes. I mean, we had to have compressors. I mean, it was a tremendous problem. And of course, with the transistor for large computers, that had to be the way. And so one thing, how fast can the transistor switch in the computer? And one of my big problems was measuring that. How fast could it apply? And we showed what we were doing with that. And it was really the beginning. Yeah.
I mean, talk about being on the forefront.
Hey, and then digital was just coming in, and of course I was out in '86, and now, I mean, digital is in every discipline. I mean, and we're on the cusp of the next generation. And of course, it's interesting now that I'm assigned to this group in BU, the Medical Center, of evaluating people like myself. How come we didn't get Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and all what can we add to it? And so, you know, I've added my brain. I want to go to that school when I go, and he has. In fact, he was upstairs photographing me on the drums and the saxophone, and he was at a conference in Amsterdam, a world conference on centenarianisms, and he showed those videos. I mean, how come, you know, I'm not just lost in the terrible diseases of the Parkinson's and you know, that.
Well, perhaps you're about to make your greatest contribution. when this goes to be you. Okay. Roger, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I like to philosophize. You know, they say, well, we were married, say, 75, almost 75 years. We knew each other 2 years before. So, you know, what are the things I'd like to say about the length of our marriage? And I have 3 things. Don't ever go to bed mad. The next thing is, in your discussions, remember, if you say something that is not complimentary, remember, you can never take it back. So kind of keep that in mind, you know. And the third thing is empathy.
And with that, Roger Wonson, we thank you so much for taking part in the Native Veterans Oral History Project.
Yeah. Thank you.